So let's welcome in Jeremy Roenick to Hockey Hub here on NESN. Don't forget to follow NESN on all social media accounts and hit the like and subscribe button for NESN as well as Hockey Hub. Jeremy, it's an early morning for you, so we'll get started with the fact that last time we talked, you were waiting for the Hall of Fame conversation. Now you are officially a Hall of Famer. You've paved the way for American players in hockey. And then more importantly, you're hosting Snipes and Stripes. So that's where you can get all the content and pick Jeremy's brain on a consistent basis. But for starters, how are you? How have you been? It's been a year.
I'm great, Kasey. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's early, but I'm usually up at 5:30. So I was actually waiting for a couple hours for you, and it's great to hear you. Thank you for the congratulations on the Hall of Fame. It certainly was an amazing experience for myself and my family.
Yeah, I saw the emotion in your speech. I saw the emotions when your family talked about it. So I can only imagine probably how long it took to process and digest all of that. When did it become officially real for you?
I still haven't processed it. It's I've said to a lot of people, it was one thing to get announced and to get that call that you have been inducted into the Hall of Fame or chosen, but it was another thing to go through the whole experience and to be up on stage and to be able to really put all your emotions and your gratitude and your life's journey in front of everybody. And it was a great closure to that hockey aspect, that hockey side of me. And it's changed me internally. There's a lot of things that have changed me internally, and that was a big one that really kind of shaped my brain and my heart in a different way.
Absolutely. Now, was it an out-of-body experience when you did do your Hall of Fame speech? Like, when did you look back on it and think, what did I just say? Did I say everything? Because I feel like I get that way on a normal level. Hall of Fame talk is something completely different.
Yeah, I was very worried about that, actually. I've really done the Hall of Fame speech about 1 million times in my brain over the last 12 years. But when you really have that opportunity that it's really going to happen, it changes. And the fear is, can you get everything that you want out? I had a 21-year career, and there's so many things that I wanted to get out, but they only gave you 5 to 10 minutes. I took 13, but I was the last one, so I figured I would take advantage of the situation. But it was, I felt so much peace up on that stage, and I felt like I could have stayed up there for hours and hours and hours and just talked. It's like the world just slowed down for me for 13 minutes and allowed me to get exactly what I needed out. Maybe not to the extent or to the description that I needed to, but to the point to where I think people knew where my brain was and how grateful I was and how humbled I was to be up there.
Yeah, you mentioned closure. What was the biggest part of the closure that you felt when it came to your hockey career? Like you said, you're trying to combine everything from your career into one and check all the boxes. But what was the biggest, big breathtaking moment once you got that speech and started to process it?
Well, to be kind of comical about it, and I don't have to listen to fans anymore ask me, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame? That happens on a daily basis all over the place, whether it was in an interview, on the street, especially when I go to Canada. It's like, and knowing that at that time of the year, having 50 or 60 texts saying good luck today, the fact that that's not going to happen anymore. And, my career was a crazy career. You look at the stats, you look at, everything that goes into it, and it's even broader and deeper than that. And, to wrap that all up and put it into a big ball and end it with a Hall of Fame induction. I mean, that's one thing I never thought of growing up. I thought about being a professional hockey player, and I thought about winning Stanley Cups. I thought about winning gold medals, and the Hall of Fame was never on my mind until my career ended. And then it was, what's going on. And now, there's very few people that are in that Hall of Fame, and I'm proud to say and very honored that I am one of them. So and that that we went out with a nice gracious kind of exit.
Yeah, your work officially has spoken not only for itself, but the impact that you have made. And one of my favorite things about you is the impact that you've made and the pave that you've done for American players. And right now we're in the middle of this Four Nations tournament. It's speaks to a whole different level to be able to wear USA across your chest. And I caught on some interviews that you had an opportunity to talk about like how that's just a completely different feeling. You can wear a uniform every day. You can wear certain things to represent the U.S., but when you suit up in that hockey gear, it just is something entirely different. What was your favorite moment from the many international tournaments that you had the opportunity to do representing USA?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's one thing to play for your city, play for a Stanley Cup, and play for a couple million people, but it's another thing to slip the red, white, and blue jersey over with the three letters. I mean, USA is it changes your mentality, it changes your perspective, and you have a total different, I think, attack mode kind of mentality. I had the pleasure of having Mike Ruzioni on my Snipes and Stripes podcast the other day, and I got goosebumps just listening to him talk about what it was like in 1980 when they actually opened up the door and paved the way for American hockey. The biggest upset in sports history when a bunch of college kids beat the Russians, which was a superpower. That got me going. That got Chris Chelios and Tony Monti and Keith Tkachuk and Brian Leach and we can go on, Mike Modano going into wanting to be Olympians, professional athletes. In '96, winning the World Cup. In 2002, going to the final of the Olympics, the gold medal game. Unfortunately, coming up a bit short, but to win a silver medal at an Olympics is an amazing feeling and accomplishment. So. And the World Juniors, where I held the point record for like 25 or 26 years for World Juniors. There's a different level, and watching this Four Nations Cup and watching that game against Canada the other day really embodied what the thought process is and how when you pull that jersey over you, you totally get transformed into a different kind of player and a different kind of, I think, loyalty towards who you're playing for. And it was evident the other night on Saturday.
Yeah, the guys turned into complete warriors, and I feel like that's the best place to pick up because I needed to pick your brain. Heading into this Four Nations conversation, basically it was like Canada has the sexiest roster. I mean, that's what everybody thought. You've got these elite names on there, but we kind of started to forget what hockey has started to mean in America for US, especially because you got guys playing in Florida, you got development camps that are now starting to reach the southern regions of the USA and stuff. So initially heading into this, were you like, okay, USA's got that stacked roster, but USA can still do it, or were you not sure where the production was going to come in?
Well, first of all, I was curious of how I was going to really like a mini tournament inside the NHL season. I found coming into the first games, I was really excited. Then watching the games, I got more excited because I will tell you, the games that have happened here in the Four Nations with these players is so much more high intensity and physical and the old-fashioned brand of hockey that I'm accustomed to, that I enjoy. And they're playing different in this four games because it's a shortened tournament, but they're playing harder, more physically grittier, angrier, desperate than they do for their NHL teams, which I love, and so it's making it even more exciting for me to be able to watch this. It's pretty awesome. It really is to watch these guys prepare for this. Obviously, hope nobody gets hurt because that's a tough situation to be in, to play this style of tournament while you're getting ready to try to race for a Stanley Cup. But it's the Canadians are sexy. There's no question about it. Their roster is great, but Americans over the last 20 years have gradually grown to be more of that power. You see us winning World Juniors more often. It's not just the Canadians. The Canadians are actually taking a step down. I don't think I think the national development program here for the U.S. they're building more, like you said, across the country. They're getting more kids to enjoy the game. They're giving them more options and allowing more kids to get great lessons and tutelage in the game. So we're going on the upswing, whereas I think Canada is kind of taking a step back and not putting as much emphasis into the kids or into the development as U.S. And now you're seeing the fruits of those decisions by watching a team that can play all sorts of games. Yeah, Canada is good. They got a lot of great players, a lot of offensive power, but the U.S. has offensive power, goaltending, extreme defensive capabilities, and a team that can play together and kind of put their egos aside and really just play as one. And it doesn't matter who gets the goals. Or what the score is, it's as long as U.S. comes on top, and that's what you saw in the Canada-U.S. game the other night.
100%. And like sticking with the development for a second, look at how the draft, I mean, how many US players are coming from those development camps and being at the top of the draft over the past, 2-3 years. So that's spoken highly. You basically said it. The US, in my opinion, had the most complete roster coming into this tournament. But something else that I loved, I talked with Adam about it here on Hockey Hub also, is that I liked the fact that USA seems to be the team that can overwhelm their opponent in every aspect. They can wear you down. They can be physical. They can be fast. That's how I figured that the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup previously. They could beat you with speed, but they can also wear you down with their physicality and their size. There's a guy that always comes to mind. You mentioned him in your speech for the Hall of Fame. He's got two guys repping the USA in a sweater. What do you make of the Tkachuk brothers or the Bash brothers or the superheroes that they are right now for hockey?
They are the poster child of the National Hockey League. They're the poster boys. There is no question that they embody what a hockey mentality is. Keith Tkachuk had that. He's one of my best friends in the world. He was one of my favorite teammates. I had the luxury to play 5 years with Keith Tkachuk, and I know how he thinks the game, how he expects the game to be played, and he has instilled that same mentality into both of his boys. And you see the way that they go on that ice every day and the way that they prepare, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. They are playing the same in-your-face, gritty, physical, and talent-laden game that their dad did. And you said with Florida changed when Matthew Tkachuk got traded there. They turned into a gritty team. They turned into a hard team to play against. They turned into a frustrating team to play against. They turned into a team that can play any style of game. And I'm glad that you said that about the U.S. is they can play a defensive game. They can play an offensive game. They can stymie you defensively and make you frustrated like they did Canada the other day. To hold Canada to 18, 20 shots is an absolute, just an impeccable style of game that they decided to play. And the Tkachuk brothers literally are those guys that not only talk the talk, but they go out and walk the walk. And to start that game with two fights within 6 seconds of each other, two brothers, I think not only inspired the guys on the bench, but it got the whole country up on their feet and rocking and rolling. And that's the Keith Tkachuk mentality. That's the Tkachuk way. They're awesome.
I love that. I love that you said that's the Tkachuk way. Something else that I'm hoping you can give me some insight on is you do see the physicality the Tkachuks bring to the ice. And I think sometimes you're looked at and perceived as just muscle. They're just out there to be the physical presence. But what do you think is something that the Tkachuks don't get enough credit for? Because hockey IQ, you basically mentioned it with their dad, his ability to kind of manage and think through the game. Where do you think the brothers aren't getting enough credit?
That's a great question, Kasey, really, because this is one thing that you don't understand and what makes them so special is their hockey IQ is off the radar. When I first saw Matthew, I was one of the first people to pick Matthew up after he was born, both Matthew and Brady. So I've known them since they were born. When I actually watched them play as adults, Matthew was in the development camp, and I watched him play. He was not a great skater. As you can see in the National Hockey League, he's not a fantastic skater. He's very lumbering. just like his dad. Not fast, but the places that Matthew Tkachuk brings himself to, the attention to detail, the way he sees the ice, the way he sees the play, he's one of the best anticipators in the National Hockey League. Not only does he know where the puck is going and he gets himself there, but he also knows where everybody is on the ice. So when that puck gets to him, he's moving it right away. And he makes some of the best, some of the most smartest passes that allow him to create some time for himself and his teammates to have time for himself. He is an unbelievable cerebral player that loves to go into the high traffic areas, go into those traffic zones, get beat up, and also give a beating. So that's why he scores a lot of goals, is because he puts himself in the mix. And Brady, who is kind of the same way, extremely brilliant and smart, is a better skater, has probably more talent with the puck, but they both see it and they both have that drive and that energy and that desire to play an all-around game and not just be there and just show up once in a while. They are there all the time. They're always thinking, they're always engaged, and that's why they're so good, and that's why they're so why they get the job done, is because it's never enough for them. And again, that was instilled to them from Keith, who expected that from everybody, not only himself, but everybody every single night. And it doesn't surprise me that his boys are representing their teams and playing the way that they are. And I just hope Matthew's okay after his lower body injury the other day, and hopefully he can get back into the game on Thursday, because I don't think he will play on Monday against Sweden. I think they'll keep him out and get some rest.
Yeah, I think that, and it's a smart decision. I mean, they're sitting like leaps ahead in points, and more importantly, you get to see some of these other guys that can kind of step up. I mean, I've loved Matt Boldy's play. I think he's a tremendous forechecker.
Awesome.
I think he's done well, and maybe a guy like him can shine a little bit. Gensel, saw him a little bit in Tampa Bay before I relocated to Boston. So you got other guys where USA's roster can get into that sexier conversation. But
Well,
I don't know if anyone's harassed you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I mentioned Matt Boldy with some friends the other day, how impressed I was of watching him. You don't see him very much in Minnesota, but watching him, and there's people that are saying, how come you don't have this player here? How come you don't have this player here? How come you don't have this player here? Of other guys that you could have brought in, but you brought in a guy like Matt Boldy. But you see why, because Matt Boldy is an all-around, complete hockey player that can get it done in any aspect, any situation, and he's a very valuable player. I'm really happy that you mentioned Matt Boldy, because I've been very impressed with him too.
Absolutely. And I don't think he's getting enough credit to his name, because Minnesota has had to change a lot of things around. They've been impacted heavily with injuries. So I feel like he's always just kind of had to apply to what Minnesota needs at that moment. But I'm hoping a tournament like this can highlight just how much and how special Boldy is. And when they get their roster in a healthier place and figure out their lines more consistently, I think Boldy will have a better conversation around his name. But I've loved his play.
Yeah. Well, that just proves it's not just how talented that the roster looks. It's how it's built and what every single player brings to that roster. And the United States has built a very consistent and a very, I think, unique roster, where if you want to play really strong defensively, we'll lock it down. You want to play offensive, they got some game breakers that can do that. You have the goal, we have the goaltending. There's every aspect of that build. It's not just who the best players are, because you know what they always say, hard work will beat talent 7 days a week when talent doesn't want to work. Right?
Exactly.
So these guys, you need lunch pail guys. Not to say that USA has lunch pail guys, but they definitely have guys that aren't as talented as a McDavid or a McKinnon or Cale Makar, but they have the brains and they're willing to do everything as a team, not just individually. And that's not to say Canada is, but USA is doing it better.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the grit and doing all the small details right. That always is going to get you a couple leaps ahead. So hot seat for a second. If I put the GM hat on you and you had to pick your top line for the USA tournament, and you can choose from any decade, who are your top three guys that are going out?
Wow. Any decade US?
Any decade US.
So I'm putting Mike Modano, Brett Hull, and myself on the front line. I'm putting Chris Chelios and Brian Leetch on the back, and I'm putting Mike Richter in net. That would be my starting lineup for USA.
Oh, see, you already had it top of frame. I love that. That was right there at the tip of your tongue.
I would throw Tony Amonte in there. I would throw Tony Amonte in there for myself, because he's like my soulmate of wingers. But I think Mike Modano is the best USA hockey player of all time. You have Brett Hull that just can shoot. There's only one better shooter, or maybe two of all time. That's Ovechkin and Bossy, the three best shooters of all time. And of course, I got to put myself on there. So.
Yes, of course you do. Well, when I got to talk to you a year ago,
you got to put a little grit. Got to put a little grit into that line.
Well, that's why I had to ask about it, because I remember asking you a year ago if there's any player that you can mention that might have assimilation to your game. Could you name one? And you're like, at the moment, no. Which, of course not. You have your own special set of skills, and that's why you've paved the way for American players. But is anybody maybe catching up to some of the style that you had in play?
I think those Tkachuk boys are very much of the same mentality, right?
Okay.
So maybe not as much as the goal scoring aspect, but when you talk about being able to score goals, being able to make great passes and great plays, being very physical and willing to fight, you take all those into consideration. If I was going to say anybody, I'll say my Brady and Matthew, or I would like to say I played just like them, or they're playing just like myself and their dad. So.
Yep, cool. That's a great club for y'all to be in. Before I let you go, one thing that I would be remiss not to ask you, especially being here in Boston, if you have a team and a roster with a lot of talent on it, but it's just not coming together, the postseason feels like it might be out of reach a little bit, or you're right at the cusp. What do you think is the biggest thing that needs to help this roster come together, where the talent and the chemistry can start helping them get consistently in the winning column?
Yeah, that's all about building that whole chemistry in that locker room, and whether coming down to a trade deadline right now, where there's a lot of teams that are wondering what they need, what they're missing, what they need to get rid of. That trade deadline is a very important, I think, aspect to NHL teams that can either bolster a team and give them confidence that the team is bringing in something to help them, or waking them up by getting rid of somebody and say, hey, listen, boys, we need to get a little bit better. We need to come together. It's building that culture in that locker room. And the only way you're going to build that culture in that locker room is to get the top guys to talk and to be in front of everybody and have conversations. I don't know really what goes on in an NHL locker room, whether there is a lot of talk, a lot of rah-rah or whatever, but if it's not working too well, is getting right in front of everybody and literally going one by one right down the line and giving each other their own opinions of that player. The worst thing for a player in the locker room is to have another one of your teammates not like the way you're playing, or have a doubt about whether you're engaged. And if that honesty happens in the locker room, you will see, I think, guys will work harder and that bond will happen faster. But that's how I would get prepared. It would be more meetings and more honesty face to face, and really make people uncomfortable, because you don't want to be uncomfortable with your players in that locker room. Trust me, you want everybody to love each other, but you also want them to respect you and know that and let them know that you're there for them. So that's how I get ready for it.
You got to get everybody playing for one another. That's for sure. Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I can't thank you enough for the content that you're bringing everybody over at Snipes and Stripes. And more importantly, I can't look forward more to what you're going to say in your next speeches as you continue to process becoming a part of the Hall of Fame. So enjoy it with your wife and your family.
I hope the next speech is about a USA gold medal here coming up on Thursday. That'd be great.
There you go. They know who to call. I'd be psyched about that. Thank you again so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Kasey. I appreciate it. See you later.